In this video, Linus sails to Papeete and has to deal with heating issues, shops for parts, and replaces a smelly head in paradise. Subscribe to Slow Boat Sailing, where we give you our part-time around-the-world adventure and the stories of the most interesting sailors in the world. So I'm just exiting the Port Phaeton Harbor. I was able to put on the old alternator and that worked, and no smoke, no problems. Ran the engine for over an hour after that, and then tossed off the dock lines. I still have the seacock problem. It's leaking about a quarter cup an hour. I did that overnight to try to do some patching of that. The life caulk that I put on it didn't work, and the other epoxy that I tried flaked right off right away with the water, but the life caulk stuck pretty well on with the water. I just didn't have enough of it, and I'm not sure it would have worked anyways. So after using it there, I highly recommend it as a product for kind of below waterline use. Got a little later departure than I wanted to, but it's about 9:30-ish departure. I wanted to get out by 7, but you know, things take longer than you hope. It's 40 miles to Papeete Marina from here. The pass here is well marked, but it's kind of narrow at the start, and it has a dog leg that's not clearly marked, so it's nice to have your track. You really can see the waves breaking from visual, and you might see a bit of it awash too, depending on the tidal stage. So it looks like you're going into some trouble. The red, it's red left, red right leaving, so leaving, everything's opposite here. Alright, so about 10 miles from Papeete Marina, I noticed that the engine temperature was 230 going to 240, and it really shouldn't go above much over 200 underway. And when I checked down, I shut off the engine immediately, and when I opened up the compartment, it was a little smoky. Not like it was yesterday, but it was still a little smoky. And I checked underneath, and the alternator belt had fell off, and since the alternator belt turns the water pump belt, if you don't have the alternator belt, then you don't have any cooling, you're going to overheat. And I'm surprised I didn't get an alarm for that, like a charging alarm, but I didn't. So there might be something wrong with the Yanmar panel of alarms too, but at least we installed that water temperature gauge, and that told us about the problems. You know, while I'm at it, since we have an overheating problem, I wanted to make sure the impeller looked good, and it did, so that was not the cause. It was definitely the alternator belt. Water pump belt, it was pretty stretched out, so I'm going to replace the water pump belt. So the second one that I've replaced, this is in bad shape. I'm going to throw that away. The ones that I replaced yesterday I think are in pretty good shape, and they probably could be reused, but I have a lot of spares, so hopefully I won't have to. Because of the ferries and because of the air traffic, you're supposed to call into VHF. You're supposed to call into VHF 1-2 to avoid crowds at the entrance, either by air or by sea. The fast ferries to Borea are big. They move fast and have a big wake. I'm in Papeete today. We had the sail that went pretty well, except for that little belt issue. Got in late last night, and this is Saturday morning, and the stores are open. The marine stores are open today. So my mission is to get through-hull seacocks, bronze, and also to get a new alternator if I can, and a lot of Yanmar parts, such as a starter for the Yanmar, and all kinds of small disposables. Then my last stop is going to be to get the propane at Mobile. Hopefully my propane tanks are full and they will work. Ocean 2000 is on the way to Diesel Tech. I've been here before. It's a pretty good store. It's worth checking out. In addition to Sintong, I don't think I've been to Diesel Tech. I confused this one with Diesel Tech. We'll see what they have. Shopping excursion was pretty successful. The only thing I wasn't able to get was the alternator. And you know, I guess I'm a little reluctant to get a Hitachi or a Hitachi compatible alternator, especially if it's relatively expensive, because I don't think they put out enough power. I think you need a cruising optimized alternator to charge your batteries. So it was a loss to lose the Belmar, because it did a great job of keeping the batteries topped up. And so this season, until I can get a replacement for the Belmar, that'll be a problem. But I was able to get a spare starter, which was probably cost at least 50% more the Yanmar price in the US. Plus, most people, I think, for the starters, the starter I put in was an aftermarket starter, which is $100, whereas this one was almost $800. I did get a 10% discount because he felt sorry for me. But overall, we got the seacocks and we got the starter. The big thing we didn't get with is the alternator, so we don't have a spare alternator. The alternator we are using is not doing any charging. Basically, it's just allowing the engine to run. There's a chance if I go on Monday with the alternator to the Diesel Tech, which is kind of more focused on cars and trucks, then I might be able to show them. But we went through all the obvious numbers, and they didn't have it in stock, and they said 2 weeks. So that's a little long. I wouldn't want to wait for that, especially for not the alternator I wanted. So I'm gonna inquire about the through-hull replacement for the saltwater tap / AC tap, which is leaking very slowly right now at Technique Marine, which is behind me, and we'll check it out just right here. I'll contact them on Monday and see what they can do. I think they're the most likely place in French Polynesia to be competent to do through-hull work. You know, the storage yards are less focused on contract work. Technique Marine is very much focused on contract work, that they work on boats, they don't store boats. Whereas Marquesas Maintenance Services or TNC in Taravao, or Raiatea Carnage, or Apataki Carnage, those are storage places in French Polynesia, and I think there's less emphasis on actual doing work on boats versus storing boats. Technique Marine is focused on working on boats. Alright, so I got the propane back. They only have butane here. Really, Tahiti's the only place that you can get your gas cans filled. It cost me about, I don't know, $40, $45 per can, and I had, what is it, I think the 10 gallon size. So it's kind of a mid-sized can. It's not a huge one, but it's not the normal size that you have in a home. So it's like about half normal size for a home. And that's obviously very expensive. But it also included the service of them taking it. You can only drop it off at the mobile stations, mobile gas stations here in Tahiti, and that's the only gas filling service I know of. Maybe some yacht services will fill gas, say in Nukuhiva or Whakarava. They might do that for you, but they're probably just doing the propane fill for you. Here you've got, or the gravity fill for you. Here you've got the gas company filling it for you. The butane kind of burns kind of differently, but it's okay to use butane in propane appliances, but it's not okay to use propane in butane appliances. So since we're on a propane standard in the US, we're more flexible than somebody, say, if they were on a butane standard. I find butane a lot harder to light, so I'm probably not going to let my crew members light the stove and just ask them to have me light the stove for them. Getting ready to leave Tahiti, but we have kind of a number of issues that have popped up after this storage. A lot of it has to do with electrical because of the high humidity in the boat. One of the things I found was that the engine hours meter was steamed up, which is in the main electrical compartment. Most of the other electricals seemed to work, except I think the solar panel controller doesn't work at the moment. But once I was running the engine and going the 40 miles from Port Phaeton to Papeete, Tahiti, I noticed the engine hours did not budge from what they were originally. So it seems that that went bad. I was able to get a new engine hour meter at Sindhung Marine, the Yanmar dealer, and also a great source for marine parts here in Papeete. They're not a sponsor, and hopefully that will do it, and we'll have a new engine hour meter. Engine hour meter's important for me because I do my maintenance based on engine hours. So I know how much stress the engine has had by the number of hours it's run, and it makes my life a lot easier tracking those hours with an engine hour meter. And we replaced our engine hour meter on the island packet early on. My father-in-law did. When we bought it back in 2013, it had a broken engine hour meter, which at least my father-in-law thought was a good sign about the thing, because the engine hour meter said it had less than 600 engine hours, but it was actually broken. So I guess my take is that engine hours probably don't matter that much on marine diesel engines. What does matter is how they were maintained over those engine hours, and an engine hour meter cannot tell you that. Alright, so this is the new engine hour meter. You see it's got these back connections, and it looks just like the old engine hour meter connection, so that's great. My life is going to be very easy, hopefully. Here's the old engine hour meter, and we just take it off and put the new one in. So working on the engine is dirty work, but there's nothing dirtier than working on the head. Unfortunately, the head smelled so bad because it wasn't working that the dirty work of replacing the head seems a lot more preferable than living with a head that is not flushing properly. This is the new head. I wouldn't put an old head on the settees. This is the new head, totally clean, except for a few spiders, but no nastiness besides that. The old head, not so much. So I used the doggy pee pads to get out as much urine out of the head, closed off the valves so there's no new water coming in. But still there was some messes and I needed to use the pee pads on the floor. So Daly's pee pads are coming to use. Rest in peace, Daly. Thanks for bringing them to us. We needed them today. So this section didn't come with hose clamps, but I put on my own hose clamps, bought some extras. The new throne is a little bit bigger, so I hope it fits. Fingers crossed. Okay, there it is. Just need the cover on. Test it without the cover on. See how the water's worked. It should be all tightened down and everything should work properly now. We just before we put on the cover, and that might actually cut down on the smell because there's still kind of undiluted urine in the line, and if we were able to flush it a few times with salt water, that would make it smell better. First flush, look at that. Woohoo! Good flushes. Woohoo! The first flush went great. The bathroom's smelling somewhat better. Now we'll put on the toilet seat cover. Alright, there's a full-size bowl. Looks good. Full-size bowl fits, leans up on its own, at least when we're level, and looks perfect. In episode 3 of season 3 of Slow Boat Sailing in 2018, Linus takes on the first volunteer crew member of the season, and they sail to Moorea and Raiatea. Subscribe to Slow Boat Sailing, where we give you the stories of the most interesting sailors in the world and our part-time around-the-world adventure.